this week's show. Nerdcognito lays a load of fudge. J. Scott Garibay has some hot takes worse than his camera angles. Scowl 2 takes a number 2 on Gandalf and D&D. NobleShield just can't get it. And Troll Lord Games tries to save a slot merchant. Hey friends, it's your pal Daniel, and in my humble opinion, these are some of the dumbest hot takes and decisions made in the world of TTRPGs. Welcome to Driving and Dragons. This is where we look up the nose of our peers to see who used intelligence as a dump stat. Now, many of you may be expecting me to take the piss out of the pretend D&D crowd this week. You know, those guys who pretend that they're champions in a fake professional international D&D league that has no evidence of his existence. Well, Fakey Dukes and his buddy Flooded Realms spent the better part of the weekend displaying a stunning lack of logic and education, as well as some of the absolute worst examples of people under 40's complete inability to take responsibility for their own boneheaded decisions. However, their particular breed of stupidity is a bit outside the lighthearted scope of this little series of satire. I'm trying my level best to stick to gaming and gaming industry matters and those kind of things that are adjacent to it, and this back and forth just doesn't really fit that bill. So why do I mention it at all? Because I want to point out something that everyone can slide in their back pocket for future reference. If you are busy attacking the supporting examples that someone uses in an argument as if the entire point is being made, while you ignore said point, you've already lost. Just don't do it. Some guy says you can save money in a lot of ways doing some things yourself, like changing your own oil. It's $80 at the Quick Lube, and you can do it for $35 at home. If your retort is something idiotic like, well, what if you can't change it at home because of the HOA? Then you've missed the point and lost the argument. In that example, the point is, there's a lot of ways to save money. Not that every single person can and should change their oil and home oil changes are the key to financial freedom. So stop doing this. It makes you look and sound stupid. Anyway, let's get into the fun of intentionally overreacting to things in the TTRPG world. Before we do, please take a second to like the video, hype it, share it with your friends, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. These little things are free, and they help the channel out tremendously. If you like to show support in ways that aren't free, join as a channel member or as a paid supporter on Patreon. You'll get your name added to the end of the videos and a few other perks as things move along here. And don't forget that the super stickers, super thanks, and super chats during the premiere all go towards supporting future car giveaway products. Now, let's mix up that BC headache powder, because it's time to see what gave me a headache this week. We open strong with the boys over at Nerdcognito. As per the usual arrangement, their issue is one of scale rather than principle. It really is all or nothing for Ryan David and co., and when it's nothing, that is typically a description of the content of their skulls. This time, it is whining about dice fudging, as if it's some kind of 5e modern player nonsense, and that it's not something Gary Gygax literally endorsed in the very first published books. If you fudge a die roll, any roll, for any reason, why do you even roll in the first place? Grab a flashlight and tell a story instead. Well, there are a lot of reasons why you might call for a roll and then fudge it. Now, fudging should be a very rare thing, but it isn't an all-or-nothing prospect. It could be an opposed roll where the gap is just a bit too much and maybe it needs a bit of a tweak. It could be that the rolls are just repeatedly bad, and perhaps that third crit in a row was really just a hit, or those 4 hits were just 2 hits instead. Dice fudging is something you do to benefit the game experience as a whole, not an individual player. And it is something that you do to correct anomalies in the abstraction that is the game rules. Now, if you want to play roll in the open, the dice are the dice game, Well, that's absolutely fine, and if that's what you and your players want, play it. But stop acting like GM quote-unquote cheating isn't very much coded into the primordial DNA of Dungeons & Dragons. Our pal Scott Garibay is here not once, but twice this week. He avoids landing on this show typically just through sheer attrition and desensitization. Nearly everything he says about TTRPGs, especially D&D, is so mind-numbingly idiotic that it fails to register as being particularly stupid anymore. I mean, this guy literally runs around delivering DoorDash with his camera pointed up his nose, talking about WotC like they're prophets and keepers of a sacred religious order known as Dungeons & Dragons. So how did he show out as dipping below the already basement-level floor that is the expectations for his IQ? Well, by saying that no D&D campaign should ever last 2 years because it means no one at your table is growing, changing, or being challenged. You see, this is all part of his D&D is a grand vehicle for personal growth and development nonsense. It's also part of the retarded notion that if woke tards of the coast did it, it must be right. And what did WotC do? They developed a culture in which campaigns fall apart after 6 sessions. And since that's what's happening, that obviously is what they intended. It's obviously what they wanted. And according to Garibay, it's obviously the best thing ever. This is simply evidence that Garibay is an utterly incompetent TTRPG tourist. Not that he hasn't been in long campaigns, but that he has such a complete lack of understanding of how the game is run that he thinks that there is no growth, change, or challenge involved in a continuous campaign. However, Garibay's unending mental deficiency certainly doesn't stop there. Next up, he laid down gems like, no one is running quick combats with 10 people, and if you have 10 players, I don't think you've even bothered reading the DMG. In response to Bill Sylvie, the Dungeon Delver, a man widely recognized as the paramount expert on AD&D First Edition, and who routinely displays an almost encyclopedic knowledge of the game. I mean, I've seriously watched Bill reference page number and heading out of the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide when asked about a rule or a magic item on a live stream. We're not talking prepared and researched. We're talking off-the-cuff response to an off-topic question. What is actually on display here, aside from Scott's monumental stupidity, is the fact that his knowledge of D&D begins and ends with post-Critical Role 5e. If he ever had knowledge of the prior editions of the game, he has long since erased it to make room for Ryan Akaba fanfiction because he can't even grasp the fact that the TSR editions of both basic and advanced D&D were built for fast combat with as many as 15 players. There are some incredibly moronic D&D commentators out there, but your pal Scott Garibay is the only one that makes Pointy Hat look competent, in my humble opinion. Scowl 2 jumped into a thread about the difference in how old school and modern character concepts with a truly stupid take on Lord of the Rings characters. He mentioned that one of the characters was level 9 on par with Gandalf. When it was pointed out that this comment just needed to get back on the short bus that brought it here. When this was pointed out that it was just really idiotic, he chose to double down. It was pointed out that Gandalf is effectively a demigod, and that there's even a direct parallel. You see, before the Tolkien estate sued TSR, Balrogs were actually in Dungeons and Dragons. They were effectively a critical, they were effectively a CR 12 or 13 monster, if we use modern terms based on their abilities. In other words, a demon powerful enough to pose a serious threat to an entire level 12 party is what a Balrog was. And Gandalf, not even full power Gandalf in his limited Gandalf the Grey form, defeated a Balrog in single combat. Scowl 2's numbskulled rejoinder? An old Dragon article where Bill Seligman lays out this incredibly moronic notion. And of course, a second-tier TSR employee writing for Dragon Magazine is definitely an authority that is far beyond, the source material and the actual lore of the character written by the creator of the world. This numbnuts probably argues that Galadriel has had a love affair with Sauron because he saw it on Rings of Power, and that's what Amazon said, so it must be true. Well, what was it that Robert Downey Jr. said that one time? Never go full retard? That's sound advice for Scow 2, whose head is filled with number 2, if you catch my drift. One day old Scow 2 may tell someone that Eris Wainwright is just a basic street punk because the writer of some cyberpunk blog in 2042 said so. Despite the fact that in the pages of Corvid Codex, Volume 1, he is clearly depicted as an elite mercenary and top-tier assassin. The source material is definitely secondary to some guy's analysis of his abilities his mission only had 3 or 4 combat encounters. Maybe you should get a copy of Corvid Codex right now so that when some dummy tells you that the crew of the Shard Bargain are basically level 1 because some nitwit posted it in an X article, you can set them straight. Digital and paperbacks are both available on Lulu. Get one for yourself, get one for a friend, or tell your local hobby store that a stack of them would look great for sale right by the register. What doesn't look great is the future prospects of NobleShield as a developing TTRPG hobbyist. You see, he seems to have this weird Gen Z problem of crying about how he can't understand anything that actually hinders a player character. Anytime his character faces a challenge, it is clearly targeted GM harassment meant to give the players the shaft, right? Why is it that some old school settings list equipment at twice the cost as the rule book? This is clearly just to screw over players. Let's hinder the PCs. This is just pathetic. Newsflash, sometimes these kind of things have pretty damn good reasons. For instance, in World, plate mail, if you could even find it, would be astronomically expensive in a setting that mimics Sengoku Japan rather than medieval Europe, because they didn't have the ability to craft plate steel like that in Japan, so it would be astronomically more expensive. On a purely gaming front, restricting resources creates new challenges and presents new dilemmas for the players. All of a sudden, the goblins, they're a threat again because you don't have access to that shield armor combo that makes them only hit you on a 20. That flying monster has to be treated differently when the arrow shortage makes ranged weapons a bank buster. This is no different than the boo-hooing power gamer in 3.5 who gets mad that you won't let him build a character that uses both the Desert Swordsman and the Jungle Pirate supplements. Just because there is a suggested price in a book somewhere doesn't mean that you're cheated if the DM chooses to not take that suggestion. Seriously. Next thing you know, NobleShield will be saying that he doesn't understand why he has to roll dice to make attacks. That seems like hostile GM picking on the players by making them actually score a hit before they get to do their damage. Alright, we end up on a bit of a sad note here, guys. Trollord Games, they're good people. They really try their best to keep the true old school alive, and let's be real, Castles and Crusades is essentially what Gary Gygax envisioned as 2nd edition AD&D. They publish here in the United States, they built their own facility to keep that dream and promise alive, they support the community that helped build their company, and I'm a huge fan of theirs. But their hearts are bigger than their brains sometimes. Take this nonsense. Let's set aside the half-formed anime rip-off pseudo-classes they graciously let Emmy add to some of their supplements. We're just going to set that on the back burner. Let's be real here. Trollord already had a situation where one of their longtime artists got caught, we'll say, being less than honest about his use of AI, and it could have had major blowback on them. So why would they go out and promote a known AI tracing slop merchant who openly mocks anyone with even the slightest misgivings about any use of AI whatsoever, when they suddenly say, hey guys, say no to AI and say yes to giving me money. This is just tragically stupid. You have a person who got busted passing off altered AI images as commissions, who can't even spell work in progress, well, at least not in English, and you are amplifying them. God bless you for your loyalty, Troll Lord Games, and for your love of supporting the little guy, but boy, this is the wrong horse to back. Please, please, don't repost it when someone advertises that they're selling wolf tickets. Anyway, that's all we have this week. The end card has been updated with my current paid supporters. Thank you all, every one of you, and I'll see you guys next time.